So I've been living in Japan for a little while now, and I've received my fair share of questions from you guys across my social accounts, asking things like, what's living in Japan like? How can I move there? Is it hard to find an apartment? So in this video, I'll be answering some of my most asked questions about living in Japan. And without further ado, let's get started. So we have our first question on YouTube from a subscriber, and it says, would be cool to know what dating in Japan is like as a foreigner. I don't really have a lot of experience in this regard, but one thing I can say is that unless you meet a really open, international-minded Japanese person, it can be quite difficult to form a meaningful connection because of how different culture and values are. For one, it's considered pretty normal to split the bill here, but that might not be something that everyone is comfortable with. And then as a foreigner, there's an added layer of complexity because not everyone is going to approach you with clear or serious intentions. We all hear about gaijin hunters who just want someone to practice English with or just want to be seen with a foreigner. And believe me, they actually exist. Of course, this is all going to depend on your ethnicity, Japanese level, and personality, but generally speaking, there's going to be an added layer of suspicion towards you for being a foreigner as opposed to another Japanese person. Overall, it's not immensely difficult to meet people, but as with anywhere else in the world, meeting the right person might take some time. Another thing is that perceptions of cheating might be very different to what you know. This was a shock to me at first, but a lot of Japanese people don't consider to be cheating or are just okay with seeing other people on the side. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So hearing these kinds of stories does make me kind of wary of dating Japanese people, but even then I know that not everyone is like that, even if many are. And as always, there are exceptions to every rule. In the end, it's all about finding someone who shares the same values as you, Japanese or not. Next question is from TikTok, and it says, what is job hunting in Japan like? If possible, please share more about no Japanese jobs and M5/N4 level jobs. If your Japanese level is low, you're kind of limited in what you can do besides teaching English. That's the only job I can think of that doesn't require any level of Japanese. Pretty much everything else, including working at a convenience store, will require you to have at least a conversational level of Japanese, if not higher than that. For teaching English though, your best option would probably be the JET program, which allows you to work as an AOT in a Japanese school on a contract for up to 5 years. You also have the option of applying directly to AOT dispatch companies like Heart, Interact, and Borderlink. However, I'd probably recommend the JET program because the pay and working conditions seem to be much better. And while Japanese technically isn't required, you'll definitely be at an advantage if you know it. And our next question is also going to be from TikTok, and it says, is it possible for me to learn only understanding and speaking Japanese instead of writing and reading? If so, is there anything you can suggest that I should do in order to achieve that? And I'm sorry to break it to you, but absolutely not. I would definitely not recommend doing this. I mean, you're not going to get very far without learning how to read at least hiragana, katakana, and basic kanji. You still need to learn grammar and how words are written in order to pronounce them properly and understand others. Reading and writing are also very good ways of learning and remembering vocabulary. I can understand that learning kanji can feel so daunting, but it's only that way for as long as you haven't started. You're going to outgrow even hiragana and katakana alone very quickly, because at some point, all the vocabulary starts to look the same when there's so many similar sounding words in Japanese. So kanji is the easiest way to distinguish them. Try to look at kanji as building blocks instead of a bunch of complicated strokes. There are only so many basic blocks out there that after seeing some 100 of them, you've basically seen all of the different blocks there is, and every kanji that you learn from that point is just going to be a different combination of all those blocks that you already know. The next one is going to be from my Insta, and it says, how much Japanese do I need to know to move to Japan? This is probably a question that most of you who are studying Japanese at the moment have had at some point. As someone who has learnt Japanese and moved to Japan, I would say that while you technically don't need very much Japanese to move here, your experience will be infinitely smoother and better the more you know. If you're relying heavily on English to get around in your daily life, eventually you're going to feel very limited in the types and depths of experiences you can have. It might be harder to make friends with a language barrier. You might not get the full cultural experience without understanding the language. Dealing with the copious amounts of paperwork at the bank or city hall might start to feel tedious when you're relying solely on often limited English translation and support. While Japan generally has a lot of English support in the major cities, you have to remember that this is a Japanese society which functions in, well, Japanese. So there's definitely no harm in knowing more Japanese if you're gearing up to move here. The next question is from Insta and it says, is it hard to find an apartment in Japan? I've heard that foreigners get rejected for apartments, etc. Is this true? Also, is it hard if I don't know Japanese / my Japanese isn't good? This kind of ties into my previous question, but knowing Japanese will only work in your favor. I only have some experience in this area, but personally, I haven't had any trouble finding an apartment. And I know that unfortunately, this isn't always the case and foreigner discrimination is still a very real thing here. Many agents would rather turn down a tenant than deal with the hassle of a foreigner who might not understand the rules, process, visa requirements, all of these things. It means more work to them than just taking on a Japanese tenant who already is familiar with the language, the entire process, has no visa restrictions, etc. Like I said earlier, having an understanding of Japanese and the process of finding an apartment will only work in your favor. If you can only speak English, you might be limited to only foreign-friendly rental brokers, which could charge you a premium. When I found my apartment, I went through a well-known rental broker that is all throughout Japan. Mind you, absolutely everything was in Japanese though, so I can kind of understand why it would be daunting for them to deal with foreigners. There's a lot of legalities and fine print which are very important for you to understand. If you know Japanese, things will just be a whole less daunting for everyone and it'll make the whole process a lot smoother. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope this video was helpful, especially if you're considering moving to Japan. It's a great place to be. If you learned something, be sure to leave a like. If you have any further questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I will answer them. And don't forget to subscribe to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye!